The Pixel 11 lineup is expected to arrive in August, and honestly, Google doesn't need to reinvent the Pixel this year. The software is already excellent, the cameras are still among the best in the industry, and Google's AI features continue to set the standard for what a smartphone experience should look like. But there are still a few recurring issues that Pixel fans have been talking about for years, and if Google can finally address these 5 areas, they could finally put those arguments to rest. Let's start with performance, because this is probably the biggest question mark hanging over every Pixel launch. Now, to be fair to Google, the Tensor chip gets criticized a lot online, and not all of that criticism is deserved. For most people, Pixel phones are fast enough. Opening apps, scrolling through social media, watching videos, taking photos, none of those things are a problem. The issue is what happens when you compare it to other phones that cost about the same amount of money. For the last few generations, Tensor chips have consistently lagged behind Qualcomm's flagship processors, but only in gaming and sustained workloads. And once the phone starts heating up, the gap becomes even more noticeable because the chip has to dial back performance to keep temperatures under control. That's been one of the biggest frustrations among Pixel fans. Every year Google promises improvements, and every year the conversation somehow comes back to thermals, efficiency, and benchmark results. But this year, however, there is a reason for cautious optimism. Unlike previous Tensor chips, which were manufactured by Samsung, the Tensor G6 is expected to be produced by TSMC using their new 2nm process. That's the same company behind Apple's A-series chips and Qualcomm's latest Snapdragon processors. And that's significant because TSMC has built a reputation for producing more efficient chips with better thermal characteristics. Of course, changing manufacturers doesn't automatically solve everything. Google still has to get the chip design right. But if there was ever a year for the Tensor to take a meaningful step forward, this feels like it. The second issue is battery life, or more specifically, battery consistency. Because if you ask a lot of Pixel users what frustrates them most, it isn't necessarily that the battery is bad, it's that it can be unpredictable. One day your phone comfortably lasts until bedtime, another day it seems to drain far faster than expected despite doing the exact same things, and software updates doesn't seem to help either. Over the years, Pixel owners have repeatedly reported battery drain issues after certain updates. Google usually fixes those problems eventually, but by then the damage is already done because people begin questioning whether the next update will improve their phone or make things worse. Google needs to get it right this time from the get-go. Third is video recording. This is one area where Google's reputation doesn't quite match the reality anymore. When it comes to photography, Pixels are still fantastic. Google's image processing remains among the best in the smartphone industry, and that's one of the biggest reasons people continue buying these phones. But smartphone cameras are no longer judged only by photos. Video has become just as important. Whether you're creating content for YouTube, posting on TikTok, or simply recording memories with friends and family, video quality matters more today than it did 5 years ago. And while Google has improved significantly over the years, many people still view Apple as the leader in smartphone video. That's not a position Google should be comfortable with, especially for a company that markets its camera experience so heavily. The fourth issue is storage. This one sounds less of an issue than performance or cameras, but it's becoming harder and harder to ignore. Google is pushing AI features more aggressively than almost any other smartphone company. AI processes need a lot of space, and at the same time, users are recording larger video files than ever before. Apps continue to get bigger, games continue to get bigger, yet 128 gigabytes was the starting point on the Pixel 10 Pro. That might have been acceptable a few years ago, but today it's becoming increasingly difficult to justify. And last but not least, value. This is the one that ties everything together, because years ago, buying a Pixel often felt like getting a great deal. You were getting everything Google had to offer without paying the highest prices in the industry. Today, that's no longer the case. Google's premium Pixel phones now sit directly alongside Samsung and Apple when it comes to pricing, and that changes the conversation completely. When a phone costs flagship money, people stop comparing it to older Pixels. They compare it to other phones that are in the same price category. They compare performance, battery life, cameras, they compare storage, and they compare the overall experience. The good news for Google is that the foundation is already there. The Pixel 11 doesn't need to reinvent what a Pixel is. It just needs to prove that the hardware can finally match the quality of the software that's running on it. With that said, do hit that follow or subscribe button for daily tech updates, and I'll see you guys on the next one.